Hello yogis. I've been reluctant to share a short video because the emphasis of my teaching is to complete a thorough warm-up before we practice more challenging poses and sequences. So with a bit of a nod to busy lives and knowing that some movement is better than none, here's a 25-minute video that might work for you. Before you start, have 2 blocks handy. And if you have a small 8-inch ball, you might use that for the inversion. Let's get started by marching in place. Yogi's choice if you want to have the hands right alongside the body, maybe behind the back, maybe out toward the sides, or maybe up overhead. The movement is simple. It's a march. And it's your choice how high you bring your knee up and the pace of your march. I'm going to practice with doing different things with my arms to give you ideas about what you can do, but use your body intelligence for what really makes a lot of sense. When my arms are out to the side, some people report that this really helps with balance. More challenging, certainly, to have the hands behind the back. And remember that the march can be small and slow and low, or even a little bit faster if you start to get a little uncomfortable with how long you're keeping your foot up off the floor. There's also a possibility of starting low, finding your balance, and maybe raising the knee up a little bit further before you place it down to go to the second side. So there's no need to practice what I'm doing. You understand the march. Some of you know that we practice going in a circle, and that can really help with balance. That's another dynamic that you can add to this march. Okay, let's get both feet down onto the floor. Open up the stance a good distance apart. Get into ready position with the knees a little bent. Both arms float up overhead. Right hand holding left wrist, coming over into a side bend. Come up through center. Left hand holds right wrist, coming to a side bend on the second side. One more time, easy fluid motion, going from side to side. And coming up through center, go ahead and straighten the legs as you stretch the arms out towards the sides, floating the arms all the way down. We'll heel toe the feet all the way in. And the next thing we're going to do is stretch the Achilles tendon. This is where you can use a block. I'm setting the block on my mat, on my sticky mat, so it won't get away from me. Getting a hand on the wall, piece of furniture will work fine, a counter will work fine. And I'm putting the ball of my foot up on that block. Some of you might be more comfortable with just the ends of your toes on the block, and that's a little less degree of bend for the ankle and will be kinder to your Achilles tendon. Now the Achilles can be a real weak link of strength for us, so be gentle here, be very careful. If this feels like a lukewarm shower, you can bend the knee a little bit and maybe go in and back, in and out with a very small, slow pulse. I'm cautioning you not to go very deep into this stretch. As soon as you feel the intensity, that's far enough. You might choose to hold the stretch for a few breaths without holding the breath, just hold the pose. And maybe go back to a little bit of slow pulsing action. And finally, taking that foot off, and let's practice on the second side. Yogi's choice, how much of a degree of bend you want in that front ankle, because that is going to determine the degree of stretch you're getting in the calf muscle and the Achilles. Remember, you can back it off by putting the ends of the toes on. And maybe holding this for a few moments before you be curious and see if there is any ability to bend that knee forward. Please don't let your ego run your practice. Really have that conversation with your body about how much of a stretch you can tolerate. And I mean tolerate in the good way. And finally, taking that off, let's set the props aside so there's nothing to trip over. We stretched the calf muscle and the Achilles, and now we're going to stretch the fronts of the ankles by bringing the heels up off the floor. No need to follow my pace or the height that I come to. You decide what really works best for you. And after coming up into what ballerinas call the releve, or I should say dancers, you can try coming down into a squat and then back up, lifting the heels off the floor and back and forth. And I'm not holding onto a wall right now, but maybe it's a good idea for you to. Or the back of a chair, a counter, piece of furniture, anything that will work to help stabilize your pose. And next, we'll set the feet apart a little bit, a good bend in the knees. We should be ready for this now. Arms up overhead, then out to the sides, back in front, and all the way down. Inhale up, inhale out to the sides, inhale up, exhale down. Inhale up, inhale out, inhale up, and down. And one more time, up, out to the sides, up and down. And we'll come up, coming to the head of the mat, the narrow version of the mat, with the feet underneath the hips, tailbone pointing down, fingertips pulling down toward the earth. So you get the shoulders down away from the ears. Now we can move the hands onto the hip points, bend the knees, and step the left foot well back. We're practicing Virabhadrasana 1, Warrior 1. Arms up overhead and bend the front knee, attempting to keep the outside edge of the left back foot making contact with the floor. So we're trying not to roll in on that arch. For the sake of our balance to come out of the pose, bring the hands back down to the hip points, peel the heel up off the floor, and in a moment of grace, step the back foot forward to meet the front. Now the right foot goes back. Right foot is back. You determine what degree of turnout you need for that back ankle so that you're on the outside edge of the foot and comfortably bend the front knee. Arms rise up overhead. The sternum is lifting, and see what you can do about knitting together the low lobes of the lungs and the ribs. Is that possible? Go ahead and bring the hands back down onto the hips, peel the back heel off the floor, and step the back foot forward to meet the front foot. Next, we're going into this movement, which actually resembles a bit of a dance, holding on to the hips. Notice I'm not standing right in the center of my mat. I'm a little bit cheated to the left. So I can step my right foot out, followed by left, right foot back, followed by left, left foot back, and then left foot forward to come back into the square. And we're doing this a few times. Your body intelligence will tell you what foot to use to complete a square. Please try to do this without looking at your feet. Try to do this with that memory of what a square is, and we're making our body draw a square with our feet. And when we come back to the starting point, we'll step back over to the side, to the front, and back to first position. Back to the side, to the front, And back to where we started one more time, stepping back, to the side, to the front, and back to where we started. Now we can find our way to the center of the mat, either holding onto the hips, which is a little more secure, or maybe holding the hands behind the back. Bend the knees into ready position and pick up one leg to step it out to the side, and the opposite leg follows. Step out to the side, and opposite leg follows. And no need to go at my pace. You see what I'm doing. This is as complicated as it gets. And act like you're stepping over a log, especially for that trailing foot, the foot that comes last. See if you can make it step up and over. And this is the last time coming back. And now we're coming down to the floor on all fours. Getting down onto the floor with the hands in front, knees in the back. Let's drop down onto the elbows into Sphinx pose. Bring the knees together. Send one set of toes back with the toes curled under, and the second set of toes back with the toes curled under. If Sphinx plank is difficult for you, bring one knee down and then the other, and you can practice here instead. In Sphinx pose, we're holding the pose, but don't hold the breath. And for some of you, with the feet very close together, maybe you can lift one leg. This isn't going to work if you're on your knees. Maybe you can bring those toes down and come to the second side. Even, steady flow of breath. Toes land down to be in your plank pose. Lift the hips a little and get both of your knees down on the floor. Let's come up to all fours with the knees together. And we'll bring the left leg out to the side. Your choice if the foot is parallel to the long edge of the mat or if the toes are out. You can't see my foot, but the toes are out pointing straight ahead. The leg is out to the side in the same plane as your hips. And from here, we'll practice some cat-cow. Tucking the tail, tucking the chin, rounding the spine, and then lifting the tailbone, lifting the chin, and broadening the collarbones. Back and forth at a slow, even pace. And once you get your movement organized, maybe there's a way to marry the breath with the movement, inhaling as you look forward and exhaling as you go back into that curved spine. And the next time you're coming through a neutral back, go ahead and draw that leg in. We'll send the right leg out to its own side and repeat on the second side. Again, coming through a neutral spine, retract that leg in. We'll send the left leg out to its own side again, and let the leg, maybe you keep the toes on the floor, but the leg is arcing around as far as it can go, seeing that you cross the midline of the body. And the next time the leg is behind you, go ahead and drop the knee down to the floor. The right leg goes back and continue with that motion of arcing the leg around. And that's the last last time for that arc, coming back in again. Knees are touching. Let's bring the left arm forward, right leg back, and lift the back leg into bird dog pose. You can hold this pose coming out as you need to, or bring in the elbow and the knee to touch and extend back out. And into touch and extend back out. Into touch or nearly touch and extend, and last time. In with a full extension and then drop the limbs down to the floor, hand touches down, knee touches down. Now left leg goes back, right arm forward. And you can add the movement if that feels like it's a genuine, easy move for your practice. And the next time the limbs are extended out, the hand will come down to the floor, the knee down to the floor. Walk your knees over to one edge of the mat so you can bring your hips down onto the floor and swing the legs all the way around. We're practicing some roll up and roll downs. It's important where you put your feet. There's a sweet spot so that when you come down, you can easily make it back up again. If the feet are in too close or they're too far away, you'll make this movement more challenging. And maybe that's what you want to do. But notice how the spine needs to be rounded to make it back up in these roll up and roll downs. If you are capable of coming all the way down, you can dot down your vertebrae. As soon as the head touches the floor, the chin comes into the chest to start the vertebrae following one another to come all the way up. If you need to elicit a jerking action to come up, please don't come down all the way. There is a way of putting a blanket underneath your spine the long way, this way, that can make this a little bit easier, but this is a short class, so it's fine to be doing half roll up and roll downs. The next time you come up, grab the backs of your thighs, get your balance behind your sits bones, shoulders away from the ears, and float the legs up so that the shin bones are parallel to the floor. Some of you don't have to hold on, your arms can be forward. And see what happens when you attempt to lift one leg up, alternating, straightening one knee and the other. It's fine to hold on to make this happen. It's fine to take a break when you need to. Some of you might get both legs up and both arms up. You can see how that goes for you. Then when you bring everything down, find an easy way to sit. Many of us can sit in the Sukhasana pose, but if your knees are really up and this is bothering your groins, please bring your feet forward. They don't have to be in this pose, or find any other seated pose that's comfortable for you. Those of you who get easily into Sukhasana, I'm demonstrating that pose. We're taking left hand onto right knee, right hand behind the back of the body so the sternum can lift. Relax the shoulders away from the ears and come into your easy, pain-free, strain-free twist and allow the head to look from right to left. And coming out of that twist, we'll take right hand onto left knee, left hand behind the back body to use that to lift up the front of the sternum, come into your comfortable twist on the second side, and maybe there's a turning of the head from side to side. And uncoiling from that twist, we'll turn the body around enough so that we can come onto the back body, floating the feet up into the air to come into happy baby pose. In happy baby pose, the soles of the feet are parallel to the ceiling. You can be holding onto your pant leg, to your calf muscles, to your ankles. The peace fingers can grab onto your big toes, or some of you will be able to hold the outside edges of your feet. The knees are making their way down toward the floor, and the knees are a great distance apart from one another. Think about riding a baby elephant upside down. It may feel good to get a little massage on the back body by rocking from side to side. And by eliciting this movement, it's possible that the groins and the hamstrings will release a little bit and get you a little deeper into the pose. But do what's practical and right for you. And coming back to center, we'll take the hands to the outside edges of the legs, help the legs together, bend the right knee, clasp the hands around the outside edge of the shin or the underbelly of the thigh, and allow the straight or straight-ish left leg to float up and down. Looking for that really strong stretch in the hamstrings. Some of you will feel it behind the back of the knee all the way down to the calf muscle. The next time that left leg floats up, move the hands over to the left shin or the back side of that thigh, stretch up the right leg and allow it to come all the way down or nearly all the way down and back up again. Now all my suggestions are all my cues are just suggestions. So do what feels right for you. Maybe the movement is only this big, and that's fine. If that's how you want to practice, that's great. Some of you will be able to get nearly all the way down or maybe all the way down. And the next time the leg floats up, we'll bend the right knee, release the left knee, feet come down onto the floor, walk the legs long, and we'll bend to the right knee enough that we can get the right toes behind the back of the left knee, coming into simple spinal twist. Taking any variation of the spinal twist that you choose to take, and uncoil from that twist, allowing the back of the right leg to come down onto the floor, left knee bends, toes go behind the back of the right knee to take simple spinal twist on the second side. And practicing any variation of spinal twist that is resonating for you right now. We will roll out of that twist, and it's time for an inversion, and I'll demonstrate using 2 blocks. Some of you have balls, and you know that you can set up the ball on top of the blocks if you choose to do that. I'm a big backbender, so I use 2 blocks, and that's fine for me. Please have your sacrum on the big edge of the block, not either of the narrow edges. So I'm taking these 2 blocks, I'm on my tippy toes, and I'm lifting up my hips, stacking the blocks. I'm checking with my hands to make sure they're well stacked, and my sacrum goes right on top of the blocks. I'm straightening out the blocks to make sure it's a nice neat pile. And then drawing both knees together and floating the feet up for my inversion, Viparita Karani, which translates to legs up the wall. We're just not doing it at the wall. It's much more complicated to get into that pose. With your mind's eye, or checking into the camera, you can, or I should say your screen, see if your legs are perpendicular to the floor. You might practice bringing the legs into eagle pose, or maybe wide ankle pose, or maybe dropping one leg down and then the other. But this is getting towards the end of class, and it's not time to deepen your practice. Instead, you might find a way to get some peace in your inversion. With a calm, simple expression of legs up in the air, softening those tissues in your feet, your ankles, your calf muscles, your knees, and your quadriceps, even though I know that some of those muscles are firing a bit to keep you in this position. But soften where you can. And to come out of the pose, bend the knees, set the toes down onto the floor, lift the hips, bring the blocks out from behind the back body, and you can cross your feet at the ankles, holding onto the shins. Rock up to a seated position. Coming back into an easy seated position, hands together at heart center. Namaste.